Hi and welcome to VFX Tutors. I'm Josh and in this video we'll be going through a basic distortion workflow for when you're ready to composite your projects. So this doesn't look like Nuke, maybe a little bit similar, but this is Natron or Natron. It's a free open source compositing software, and what I'll be doing here today is exactly the same as if you're in Nuke, even the nodes are practically the same. I'll be going through a basic distortion workflow for your projects. In all the tutorials I've done so far, I've only exported a Nuke LD node, and this is fine as most production companies use Nuke, but we can't use a Nuke node in Natron. So to get around this, we can open our Nuke scripts in Notepad, and we can see all the data there. So I'm just going to load in some example footage. I'm going to press Tab, type in read, and it's the same as Nuke, and I'll go to my test footage that I'll use, and I'm just going to use the garden table one. I'll select open. So now if I press 1, you can now see my play. So let's pretend that we've rendered our amazing CG and we're ready to composite over this top. So if we press Tab and read again, and we'll go to our file, we'll go to CG, and we'll go to amazing render, and we'll press 1, and you can see it's not an amazing render, it's just a checkerboard. But for this instance, we're just going to use a checkerboard because it's easy to see what the distortion's doing. So we want to merge this over the top, and this is pretty basic stuff, so if you already know this you can go ahead, but I'm just going to merge, and I'm just going to pretend that this is our final CG. So now if we can see our plate, we can see our CG is now over our plate. So now I can go to my color mixer and just change the mix on that so I can see it a little bit better. So the next thing that we need to do is load in our distortion. But for all our other shots that we've already done, we've always exported a Nuke LD node, and we can't bring Nuke nodes into Natron, but we can open them in Notepad. So if you go to your Nuke node, and you can right click and open with Notepad or Notepad++. I use Notepad+. And when you open it, you can see that you've actually got all the details that you need. You'll have to type them in manually, but if you're in Nuke, you can just click and drag your Nuke file into here and it'll be there straight away. That's if you've got the lens pack from 3DE. So what we'll do, we'll just make a lens node, so a tab, and we'll just type in distortion. And if you're in Nuke, and if you've got the LD pack in Nuke, you can probably just type in LD and it will come in straight away. So I'm just going to double click on this Nuke node, and you can see up at the right we've got some format, model, direction, and output mode. So if we change our Nuke model to radial standard degree, we've now got all the values that we had from our distortion in 3D equalizer. So now all we need to do is go to our notepad that we've opened, and we can copy all these values and just paste them into here. It's a little bit manual, but it's only 6 values you have to copy and paste. But if you're on Nuke, you can just click and drag if you've got the lens distortion pack. So I'm just going to select my distortion degree 2, copy it, and just select in here and paste. And now that's put the values in. So if I do that for all my values, some of these have minuses in the front, so don't forget to copy those across. Just going to pull that to the side so it doesn't keep going behind. And I'm just going to go through all these and copy and paste my values in. Making sure if they've got any minuses, you also copy that across. So now I've copied all of these across. I've copied my distortion degree, my UV degree for my distortion, my quartic, and my UV degree 4 as well. So now we can get rid of that, we don't need that. And now we can copy this, and we'll just paste one over to here, because we're going to need to put it on our CG. But we can just have a look and see what it does to our plate. So I'll just click and drag that on. If I press 1 on that, you can see if we press D, you can see that something's happening. But what we're doing, we're double distorting it, which is really bad. We don't ever want to do that. So if you go to your distortion node and you select direction, it will automatically be on distort, but we can change it to undistort. So now if you press D, you can see now it's undistorting the plate. But if you look at our plate, we're losing detail from our plate. So this is why we don't do a final undistort on our plate. We only use it if we need it to take it into CG and do undistorted reference plates. But in general, we'll only ever put distortion on our CG. So I'm only putting it on there just so we can see how much we're losing. So I'm just going to turn this off. I'm going to reconnect my merge over. Press 1 on that. So now I'm going to connect my distortion up to my amazing render. And I'll just put my A in here. And it will automatically be on, it'll be on undistort now. So I change it to distort. So if I press D on that now, you can see now I'm getting the opposite effect. It's distorting the render to the plate. So if I just turn my plate off by pressing D, I can press D, and you can see I'm getting the exact same problem here now. I'm getting these black edges because if you render the same resolution as your plate and you add a distortion, you won't have this extra data to be pulled in. So what we'd usually do, we'd render an overscan. So what you can do, you can render a 10% overscan. So you'd figure out what 10% extra on your resolution is, then you would render that. So when you do put your distortion on, you have extra data outside your frame to be pulled in. So you always want to make sure before you do any big renders, check that you need a overscan. Otherwise you could spend maybe a couple days rendering or something like that. Then you realise you've got all these black lines where you didn't render an overscan. Then you'll either have to render again or just crop it off. So just make sure you do an overscan. You don't need 10%. It's super overkill, but it's a really, like, there's not many things 10% won't cover unless you're doing really wide angle lenses. So what I'll do now, I'll just read in another image and I'll do my render with overscan. And you can see, if I press 1 on that, you can see it's 4424 by 2488. And I've just added 10% overscan on this. So if I go back to 1 on this, and I connect this up, see something's funky going on here, it's not quite lining up. I'm not sure why that is. But what I'll do, I'll just make a transform. In Nuke, that's probably lined up straight away perfectly. But what I'll do, I'll make a transform. Ooh. Sorry, I'm not too great at this. So I've made a transform on here so I can see where my center is. This doesn't usually happen, but I'm sure if it hasn't happened to you, don't worry. But for this case, I'm just going to quickly transform it over and just make sure it's center. So yeah, so you should have something like this. I don't know why mine's not coming center. I'm sure someone might know, and if you know, just post a comment in the section. But yeah, so now we've got our overscan plate in. So now if we press D on that, so we can actually now see we're bringing in data outside our frame range. So this is 10%, and you can see how much extra that is, and that's loads. So this is why I'm saying you might not need 10%, but it's a pretty good safety barrier. And as you can see, we're not going to have any black edges because it's bringing in data from the outside. So this is pretty much the basic distortion workflow that I would use. Everywhere's not going to have the same, but this works pretty well every time. I'm not sure why the transform, it wasn't coming as center, but I'm sure I'll figure it out. But yeah, this is pretty much it. We've got our distortion on our CG, and we can undistort it. Let's turn our amazing plate on so you can see it. And yeah, we're pretty much done now. So if you guys enjoyed this tutorial, hit that like button and subscribe for more like this.